Hey book besties, it's Gracie, and you guys already know what time it is. I'm a little late on this video because I was out of town at the end of November and didn't feel like hauling all of these books up to New York to make this video, and I also wasn't finished reading before I headed up there. So, long overdue, lost a book. Okay, lost and lassoed. You guys, I read / listened to 15 books in the month of November. I only have about 11 here in the stack because 4 of the books I could not get a physical copy of. 3 of them are only on the Kindle right now, and the other one is basically impossible to find in no Target, in no other place. I read it on the Kindle, so I didn't have the physical copy of it. So we've got 11 to talk about in person, and then I will also put the name of the book on the screen when I'm talking about it if I do not have the physical copy. I had some really good reads this month. Oh my goodness, I'm dropping I gotta put these down, hold on. I had some really good and really fun reads this month. Some fall reads, some winter reads, starting to get into the Christmas spirit with my reading, and I just wanted to talk to you guys about them. If you haven't already, make sure that you follow me on Goodreads where you can stay more up to date on all of the books that I'm reading. Also, getting into the Christmas spirit, got my little Christmas pillow, got this fun sweatshirt on Etsy. I'll have it linked down below because it is in my shop. I absolutely love this one. I got it last year. And you know, the Pillsbury cookies, you just got to, holiday staple. So I'm gonna go through this stack of books, and as always, no spoilers in this video. You're not gonna know anything more than what is on the back of the book or in the description of the book. I'm gonna keep it light, clean, and simple, tell you guys whether or not I recommend them, go over general feelings, and then talk about my star ratings. So let's get into it. Since I'm already holding this one, let's start out with Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Lori Gilmore. This is the second book in the Dream Harbor series. This comes after the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, which is a book I felt very about, but something about knowing that there was a second book in the series, I had to give it another try. And this was just another easy, quick little romance read. Wasn't obsessed with it, didn't think it was amazing, but I was entertained. Does that make sense? I'm pretty sure I gave this book 3 stars, which to me is just like, you could read it, you could not read it. Anything above 3 stars, read more than this. Anything below 3 stars, don't even look at, don't even touch, which I've got one of those on the list for this month. I love that there's an element of like mystery and romance. So Hazel, the bookshop owner, keeps getting secret messages in her bookstore, and Noah is always up for some fun, and so he decides he's gonna help her out with this scavenger hunt and see what that turns into. And it's a very sweet book. I don't know what it is. I love the story. I also have the Christmas Tree Farm book, the 3rd one, because I got it through the library, and I'm like, why not? It's one of those things where if I'm in a reading slump, I can just read one of these books and it kind of feels like nothing. Does that make sense? Like, it just allows me to read books. So would I recommend this Dream Harbor series, especially if you don't want to be super into a book or feel like you have to just pick it up and read the whole thing. If you want a book you can pick up, read, put down, and come back to whenever, go for this series. Like I said, it's nothing crazy. It has those cute elements of small town and romance and just fun, nosy characters. And so I think it's a very pleasant read. Window shopping, Tessa Bailey. This is gonna get you in the mood for the Christmas season. No. This was a 2-star read for me. I was thinking, what the heck am I reading? Most of the time that I was reading this book, it's a shorter one. It's not a novella, but it's definitely a shorter book. And I feel like the romance was so quick and so forced in this book. It's a grumpy sunshine reversed. So like grumpy female character, sunshine male character. The whole thing was just a bit odd to me. I read this in one sitting between 2 different plane rides heading up for Thanksgiving. Tessa Bailey books for me can be hit or miss, and this month both Tessa Bailey books that I read were misses. Way too spicy, way too quick. If you're into a quick fix of spice, pick up this book, pick up the other novella I'll talk about later in this one. But for me, too much too fast, needed more plot, needed more character development. They just like jumped into the sheets way too fast, and for me it wasn't a favorite, but it does obviously have those Christmas elements in the book. So if you're looking to get in the holiday spirit and you like some spice, maybe this is the book for you. I think I need to start reading what books are about before I read them, because typically I'll hear about a book, I'll just add it to the list, I'll pick it up. It kind of bit me in the butt this month. So this is one of the books where I was like, I should have read about it first. I should have looked at the Goodreads reviews, but proceed with caution. Now, a romance book I was absolutely obsessed with. I love this Rebel Ranch series by Lila Sage. They definitely are spicy. And I like books with substance, but some spice can be good sometimes. But these are spicy, but they're so well written. You're so absorbed. These are ones where I could just sit and read in one sitting. I read this one pretty fast because I ended up getting it the day before it came out, and I started reading it that day, and I'm pretty sure I finished it the next morning. I was hooked. I was hooked. This is the third book in the series. The first book is called Done and Dusted. So start with that book, work up to 2, then 3, and number 4 is coming out in April. I'm obsessed, first of all. Who doesn't love a cowboy romance? Who doesn't love a cowboy? Oh my goodness gracious. So this is Teddy and Gus's love story and how they all work it out. So like I said, read books 1 and 2 first, but if you need a spicy, fun romance series to start where you feel like you cannot put it down, warning, you're not gonna feel like you can just pick up this book and put it down like the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore one. No. You are going to be like, I can't do anything else for the rest of the day. I absolutely need to know how this ends. And I love books like this. So go for the Rebel Ranch series. Arguably one of the best thriller mystery books I have ever listened to. I didn't read this, but we're gonna call it read. Look Closer, David Ellis. The best part of a mystery or thriller is when you think you know how it's gonna end and then you get a plot twist. Well, this book is that on steroids. On steroids. I for sure knew like this is what's going on. The biggest plot twist in a book actually probably ever, and I got a few DMs that are like, you're gonna love the ending. I'm like, okay, don't tell me too much. Like, I'm not gonna tell you too much, but all I can say is you need to pick up this book. I'm gonna read the back of it so I don't do any spoilers, because this is one where I feel like I could just sit here and talk about it forever and ever and ever, and I don't want to spoil it. It looks a little intimidating, it looks a little thick, but I promise you'll fly right through it. Or the audiobook version was really well done. I can be pretty picky about my audiobooks and how they're narrated. There are many audiobooks where I will put them down or away or stop listening to them because I don't like the voice. I don't know, it's just gotta like scratch my brain in the right way, and this was a really well done audiobook in my opinion. So let me tell you what Look Closer by David Ellis is about. Simon and Vicky couldn't seem more normal, a wealthy Chicago couple with a stable, if unexciting, marriage. But with these two, absolutely nothing is what it seems. When a beautiful socialite is found hanging in a mansion in a nearby suburb, Simon and Vicky's complex web of secrets begins to unravel. A whirlwind affair, a $20 million trust fund about to come due, a decades-long grudge, and an obsession with revenge. Both Vicky and Simon are liars, but just who exactly is conning who? Prepare to question everything you think you know in this wickedly clever novel of greed, revenge, obsession, and quite possibly the perfect murder. So good. Read this right now. Read this right now. Okay, who needs Christmas season books for December? You need to be reading Look Closer. So good. Oh my gosh, it makes me want to read it again. 2 of the books that I read this month were actually novellas. I was feeling a little uninspired with what I was reading, so when I saw these novellas just available through Prime Reading, I immediately sent them to my Kindle. I was like, I'll read them pretty quick. So I started with this one, A Cruel Winter with You by Ali Hazelwood. You guys know I love Ali Hazelwood books. I've read every single one of her books. Some are a little more hit or miss, but just, I don't know, something about the stem, something in it. Her books make me feel smarter, but also like they've got a good amount of spice in them. So I read this novella. You know, it was only okay. This one by far was the better of the 2 novellas. Still felt really rushed. I wish that this could have been a full fleshed out Christmas book because I think it could have been so much fun. I'm gonna read you the little description on Amazon, but if you want a short read, a short Christmas read, this is the one to go for, not window shopping and not the other Tessa Bailey one I'm going to talk about after this. All newly minted pediatrician Jamie Malik wants to borrow a roasting pan for Christmas dinner. Unfortunately, that requires her to interact with Mark, her best friend's troublemaking brother, who is now a tech billionaire. He's the one who got away. She's the one who broke his heart. Outside, a howling blizzard. Inside, a crackling fire. Suddenly, being snowbound with the man she never expected to see again might not be such a bad way to spend a winter's night. Pretty straightforward. That kind of tells you the whole plot of the book, but that's what's on Amazon. So it was good. Like, it was just a quick, short little romance, had some spice. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, and it kind of gets you into the winter season. So if you're looking for something short and sweet to get you in that Christmas mood, this might be the one for you. One that absolutely was not the right one for me is Merry Ever After, which is Tessa Bailey's novella in this Prime Reading series. I think there's 5 books. After reading this Tessa Bailey one, I gave up. I said, no more novellas for me. Way too short, way too spicy, way too fast. The premise could have been okay, but absolutely not. I gave it a 1 star. This is the lowest rated book, I think, of the entire year for me. Meanwhile, it was like a 50-page novella, super short. Don't waste your time. I should have read the Goodreads reviews. It has under 3 stars on Goodreads. So you know, if all you want to read is spice, sure, go have yourself some fun. But for me, I was like, what? I almost gave up reading it, truly. But I was like, it's so short, I should just see it through to the end. Will it be worth it? No. Let me, I'll humor you and I'll tell you what it's about. Evie Crow is starting over in a strange town with her newborn, and men are the furthest thing from her mind. If only the quiet, hulking farmer, sorry. I'm just thinking about the book again. Luke Ward would stop coming into the thrift shop and piquing her reluctant interest. Evie wants to stay single all the way. She can't trust anything more than friends with holiday benefits. But Luke is in it for the long haul. He's fixed on making this a Christmas Evie will remember forever if she gives him a chance. The book was so bad. I think I have to give Tessa Bailey a rest for a while. I'm so sorry. Like, I can't do it, especially after this book. I can't do it. I can't do it. Oh, that was that. That was really painful to read again and be reminded of the things that I read in that novella. Also, I'm trying out this drink that my friend Rox sent me in the mail. She swears by this stuff. It's only got 85 milligrams of caffeine, so not really like a Celsius, but it does have some caffeine. Odyssey Elixir for focus and energy. This is dragon fruit lemonade. It's got caffeine lion's mane, which is mushroom. I don't know what this is. Cordyceps. I probably should have actually looked at what was in this. And there's no artificial flavors in it, which I've been really trying to cut out. I think it tastes really good, actually. So that's what I'm drinking today. Still, so many books to go through. I'm gonna quickly touch on this one because it is one that I read. We have a free library in our building, which is just actually the cutest thing ever, which is where I found this book, and I'm gonna be returning it back. It's by Brittany Hennessy, who I'd never heard of before. This is called Influencer, and I was like, well, I gotta see what this book is about. So as a part of my 2 nonfiction chapters that I read in the mornings, I decided to read this book. I should have looked because it's published in 2018, so I think some of it is pretty outdated, but other tips and tricks are in here as well. You're probably not interested in reading this book, which is why I'm brushing through it. It was okay. Like, you know, it was a free library pick that I said, you know what, there's always more to learn. They say to never stop learning. And while I knew everything in this book, it was a nice little refresher and reminder, and there's notes in here and different things from other influencers. Really quick, easy read. But I'd say if you're interested in something like this, maybe find something published sooner. Like, this doesn't even talk about TikTok. Some of the other things that it talks about with brand rates, and other than that, it's outdated for what's happening in this industry. Just a quick, easy read. This will go back to the free library, but just thought I would mention it because it is one that I read. I thought this was going to be a Christmas horror mystery thriller. I don't really know how to categorize it. Book. I listened to this as an audiobook. It's by James Murray, who's one of those Impractical Jokers, and somebody else, Darren Wearmouth. Short book. It was a short audiobook listen, but let me tell you, the premise of this book was unlike anything that I've ever read. I would not say it's Christmas. It gives the vibes of Christmas, and while it does happen in a snowstorm and it sort of ends around Christmas, I wouldn't say this can only be read during the Christmas season. I don't know, that's kind of what I was thinking going into it. It's definitely not the case, but I mean, I guess it does involve Christmas murder, but I wouldn't say it's Christmassy themed. Anyway, the premise of this book was so interesting to me, unlike anything I've ever read before. And while I didn't love everything about this book, I really appreciated the creativity that went into coming up with this book. So I'll read you a little blurb from it, but this is a short and sweet one. Well, maybe not so sweet. It's definitely like, what? But you know, I thought it was pretty good. I guess the first thing does say 48 hours until Christmas, but like I said, I don't think it was super Christmas themed. Jessica Kane wakes up with blurred vision and ringing ears and in excruciating pain. The last thing she remembers is going for a run and something, or someone, hitting her on the head, leaving a gash and blood running down her face. It doesn't take Jessica long to realize she is trapped in an unknown, deserted town with 5 other strangers who share similar stories of being attacked and stranded. Unsure why and how they got there, Jessica knows one thing for certain: she has to find a way out. That becomes nearly impossible when someone begins meticulously orchestrating the captives' deaths, one by one, and the only thing Jessica can do is watch the life leave their eyes. The fenced-in town is the killer's very own playground, and there's nowhere left to hide. She better watch out, because she could be next. Now, I don't know, does it sound interesting to you? I liked the audiobook version. I thought, like I said, it was a really cool premise, so if you're looking for something definitely thriller, I mean, a little scary to think about these things if this were to actually happen in real life. Of course, I feel like any book like that, but I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed listening to it, and I felt like I was on the edge of my seat listening to hear what happened in this book, or you could totally read it. Quick pit stop for The Last to Vanish. My friend Sydney gave me this book, and she told me she didn't really love it, but she loves to pass on her books, and I love to read books, so I read this one, The Last to Vanish by Megan Miranda. It was okay. Personally, to me, this book was just really slow. I was like, okay, come on, let's get through it. I just didn't feel like it went by quickly at all. I didn't particularly enjoy this one. Another mystery book. I'll read you the back. I don't want to spoil anything, but I just kind of felt about the entire experience of reading this. 10 years ago, Abigail Lovett fell into a job she loves, managing the Passage Inn, a cozy resort nestled in the mountains of North Carolina in a town called Cutter's Pass. Tourists are drawn to the town for its outdoor offerings and proximity to the Appalachian Trail, but also for its notorious history as the last known location for 6 different visitors who vanished without a trace over the last 3 decades. When journalist Landon West comes to investigate the story of the vanishing trail, then disappears himself, the town and the inn are thrust back into the spotlight. After months without any leads, Abby is shocked when West's brother, Trey, checks into the Passage Inn one evening. Knowing how cold the case is, Abby can't help but feel for this man. She's all too familiar with how the locals tend to close ranks to outsiders, but it isn't until Abby uncovers incriminating new evidence that she realizes how very little she knows about her coworkers and neighbors and just how dangerous that is. Back of it makes it sound more interesting than it actually was. Really into mystery, you might like this book. Otherwise, I'd say skip it and definitely go for Look Closer or some other book. Hidden Pictures. Shocked at what ended up happening in this book, but also not shocked at the same time. I was enamored. Actually, I listened to this book, and because of it, Jason Rekuliak, yeah, I've already got another one of his books under my belt for the month of December now. But the reason why I loved the physical copy so much, you've actually got pictures of what they're talking about in the book all throughout. So there's like different sections of dark colors you can see in here, and that's where the pictures are. So cute, such a fun idea. This book was so good. Like, definitely read this over that last Vanish. But this is a thick book, but do not be intimidated because you will fly right through it. Again, I'm gonna read from the back. I'm always worried, like ever since I spoiled the book earlier this year, or like people said I spoiled the book, I've been so worried to just talk freely and openly, but I will say I loved this book, and I'll read you a little bit about Mallory and this story. Mallory Quinn is fresh out of rehab when she takes a job babysitting Ted and Caroline Maxwell's 5-year-old son, Teddy. She immediately bonds with this sweet boy who is never without his sketchbook. His drawings are the usual fare: trees, rabbits, balloons. But one day he draws something different: a man dragging a woman's lifeless body. Then his stick figure evolves into increasingly sophisticated sketches depicting one disturbing scene after another. Is Teddy troubled, or is he channeling forces he cannot possibly understand? Knowing just how crazy it all sounds, Mallory must decipher the images and save Teddy before it's too late. It was wild. It's a wild book. I loved it. Highly recommend this book. So good. I can't wait for you to read it. Another Sarah Adams book this month after I discovered her earlier this year, and I love that she's got great romance books with not a ton of spice. I read When in Rome, which is the first book in the When in Rome series. Another book I should have looked closer into, like why did I think something was going to be happening in Italy and this was going to be a traveling book? No. It takes place in Rome, Kentucky. I cannot find this physical book anywhere. Not at Target, not at Barnes & Noble, not on Amazon. I couldn't get it for weeks, so I read it on the Kindle. Here it is up here. It's giving a small town romance, but let me tell you, you want to know what it really reminded me of? In a way, the Hannah Montana movie, okay? Because the main character in this book, Ray Rose, is like a famous international pop star singer who just needs a little time off, and she types in Rome and goes to the first Rome she finds, which is Rome, Kentucky, and ends up in this small town, forced proximity. But I really was like, it's like Hannah Montana falling in love with just a regular schmegular. Meanwhile, this guy owns a pie shop. So there you go, a book in a little snippet of the When in Rome, but it is a sweet book. It's a sweet series, and I think I'll continue it. Practice Makes Perfect is the second book in that series, and I already have it on my Kindle. Super sweet, super easy read, but nothing to like phone home about. It just was another romance book. You know what I mean? Like there are just those books that aren't insane or incredible in that way, but they're still a good book, and this is where I would categorize that one. Kennedy Ryan, Before I Let Go. I've heard about this book. I now also have the second Skyland book series, which is what this is in. This book was so powerful, so raw, and so real, and so romantic, all at the same time. I was blown away by the writing. The story kept unfolding. The plot was always there. I thought it was so well done, and of course, I loved how it ended. This book definitely has some trigger warnings about loss of children and divorce and some other things that you should definitely look into before reading this book. I thought it was so well done. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to read the second book, and I think the third book in the series is coming out pretty soon. Give you a quick backstory so I don't spoil anything, but it was so good. So good. Like, you gotta read it. Oh my gosh, don't let the size intimidate you. Read it. Their love was supposed to last forever, but when life delivered blow after devastating blow, Yasmin and Josiah Wade found that love couldn't solve or save everything. It couldn't save their marriage. Yasmin wasn't prepared for how her life fell apart, but she's finally starting to find joy again. She and Josiah have found a new rhythm, co-parenting their 2 kids and running a thriving business together. Yet, like magnets, they're always drawn back to each other, and now they're beginning to wonder if they're truly ready to let go of everything they once had. Soon, doing, one stolen kiss leads to another, and then more. It's hot. It's illicit. It's all good until old wounds reopen. Is it too late for them to find forever, or could they be even better the second time around? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So good. And I think what I loved about this book too is a lot of the romance books I've been reading lately, while this is romance, it's not the sole focus of the book, first of all. And second of all, it's definitely older main characters, which I do appreciate. I don't need to be reading about 22, 23, 24, 20 somethings. These two are obviously well into their lives. They've had 2 kids together. They have a lot of history. So it allows for some more depth in the book, which again, another thing I really appreciated. Can't wait to read the second book in the series. Add this to your TBR. This was the other book that I read in the mornings for my 2 chapters of nonfiction called Rich Routines. Steve Houghton. I don't know if you guys follow Turtle Creek Lane on Instagram. She does just like all kinds of crazy house decor and designing for holidays, and I'm so into that. Like, I cannot wait for someday to have a house that will never be as extreme as her, but to just decorate over the top. I love it. So I love watching her content. Obviously, I've been very interested in their family dynamics too, because they just seem to have a lot of money, but they're also self-made. So her husband published a book, and he's now a billionaire with a B, a billionaire. I couldn't believe that when I found that out either. So short and sweet, easy read for the mornings. But you know, I wish she like told me really how to do it more easily in this day and age, because I feel like what he did to make his fortune and to make his money is a lot harder now than it was back then for them to do it. At least that's my personal opinion and stance on it. But you know, also has some good principles of life in here. This book cost $30 and I read the physical copy. Like, I own this book. I wish it was a little bit cheaper, but you know, you gotta appreciate, you know, getting your book published and all that. But I will say, I don't know how spectacular it was. It's never gonna make me a billionaire by reading this book, but I do just like have a fond feeling for their family, and so I wanted to read this book, and it was good. That was it. You guys know me. Ever since I was a child, ever since I was a young girl, I have just been so fascinated with Asian culture, Japanese, Chinese specifically, Chinese proverbs, Chinese stories. So in the summer, I read The Night That Ends with Fire, and I was like, yeah, I just love the Chinese romantasy. I don't know what it is. It is like my favorite thing. So when I saw this book, and I actually listened to the audiobook version of this, I'm kind of sad that I didn't read it, but the audiobook version was so good. A Song to Drown Rivers. Wow, powerful. But I'm always very annoyed at the end. So what happens with these, especially Chinese romantasy, fantasy romance books, don't always have a happy ending, which I know is reality, but I love a happy ending in a book. But when books like this really just make you feel for the characters, this was a 4-star read for me. There were a few things that annoyed me, which is why I didn't get 5 stars, but oh my goodness, it's so good. I mean, but if you don't like reading Chinese names, or that's not really interesting to you, maybe you won't like this book. I'm still gonna read it to you, because I truly believe this and the next book I'm about to tell you about, and that Look Closer, were the top 3 reads by far, for sure. I might read the physical copy of it now that I've listened to it, but I liked listening to the audiobook because I got all the Chinese pronunciations correctly in my head. So if I go back to reread the physical copy, I will know how to say their names. Fun fact, my language in high school was actually Mandarin Chinese, so I'm going to attempt to pronounce these names correctly, but they don't have any markings over the letters because it's all obviously in English, so you'll just have to excuse me if it's not exactly correct. But there's a little fun fact. Jushia's beauty is seen as a blessing to the villagers of Yue, convinced that the best fate for a girl is to marry well and support her family. When Jushi draws the attention of the famous young military advisor Fan Li, he presents her with a rare opportunity to use her beauty as a weapon, one that could topple the rival neighboring kingdom of Wu, improve the lives of her people, and avenge her sister's murder. All she has to do is infiltrate the enemy palace as a spy, seduce their immoral king, and weaken them from within. Trained by Fan Li in everything from classical instruments to concealing emotion, Jishi hones her beauty into the perfect blade, but she knows Fan Li can see through every deception she masters, the attraction between them burning away any falsehoods. Once inside the enemy palace, Jishi finds herself under the hungry gaze of the king's advisors, while the king himself shows her great affection. Despite his gentleness, a brutality lurks, and Jishi knows she could never let her guard down. But the higher Jishi climbs in the Wu court, the farther she and Fan Li have to fall. And if she is unmasked as a traitor, she will bring both kingdoms down. Oh so good. So good, so good, so good. Floored. Like, absolutely loved this book. Was so emotionally attached to it, and that almost makes it way better. When you can be super emotionally attached to a book, when it is that well written that you are invested in these characters and their well-being, it's like the best feeling in the whole world. So if you've never heard of this, go check it out. I don't know, I think you're gonna like it. I can't imagine you wouldn't. And the final book I read this month, Give Me Butterflies by Jillian Meadows. Holy moly, I loved this book. It was a 5-star for me. It was a 5-star romance. There was something about it that gave me Ali Hazelwood vibes in the absolute best way, and I ate this book up. I ate the story up. Oh my gosh, the grumpy sunshine romance of my dream. So sweet, so perfect. I loved that they both worked in a science museum. I loved every second of it. I loved every second of it. It's available right now on Kindle Unlimited, or at least through my library too, as a Kindle book, but the physical copy of this book does not come out until January of 2025, which I had no idea. I read it through the library, but let me just read you a little bit about this book so you can just see why I was so into it. It was very Ali Hazelwood vibes. I just loved it. I'm gonna read you a little bit about it because I can't stop smiling when I think about this book. I think it was my highest rated book of the month. I believe a lot of my other ones got 4 stars because there were just a few things that annoyed me, but this one was perfection. So sometimes it's just an in the moment feeling of, oh my gosh, I love this book, 5 stars. Other times it really has to do with the writing, all that, but just something about this book was an immediate 5-star for me. Millie has never taken the expected path. Her childhood love for bugs and science led her to entomology and her role as a curator, inspiring museum visitors every day. It's her dream to run her own department, so when a rare director position opens, she's determined nothing will distract her from her goal, especially not Finn, her grumpy coworker with his permanent scowl, electric blue eyes, and endless supply of astronomy ties. Not that she spent time noticing any of those things. Finn doesn't mean to glare at everyone, but he's juggling his role at the museum, navigating the grief of losing his sister, attempting to make his nieces smile, and trying not to ruin dinner for the 5th night in a row. He can't afford to let anything slip and certainly doesn't need more to deal with, especially not Millie literally stumbling into him with her bright smile and sunny optimism. He bugs her. She's too starry-eyed for him. They want nothing to do with each other. But with Finn on the interview committee, avoidance is impossible, and Millie soon realizes it's one thing when a job is on the line, it's quite another when it's her heart. So cute, so squishy. I just, oh, loved it. Ate it up. Ate it right up. Jillian Meadows also has Wreck My Plans, I think is what it's called, for Christmas time, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to get right on that and read it, because if I loved this book, I cannot imagine I wouldn't love that one as well around Christmas time. And that was it. Those are the 15 books that I read this month. It was a really good month for me. A lot of audiobooks this month, but overall some really good reads, minus Tessa Bailey. Like, we'll just put her out of our minds for the month, but I really had a good month reading. I just love doing it. It's my favorite thing to do instead of scroll on social media. It just makes me feel so much better. I'm in a little bit of a reading slump for the month of December. I've only read 1 book so far this month, and we're already 5 days into December, so I gotta get on it. I think I maybe gotta pick up the Jillian Meadows book first now that I'm thinking about it, but I am anticipating reading a lot of Christmassy romance books just to really get me in the holiday spirit and see what else gets thrown in there. I love you guys so much. If you haven't already, subscribe down below for more book content. I also do travel and lifestyle on here. You can also follow me on my other social medias to stay a little bit more up to date with what I'm doing. I love you guys so much. If nobody has told you today, I am so proud of you, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!